You are now listening to Black Coffee, Crime, and Crochet, a true crime podcast where cozy meets criminal, hosted by Jasmine Prince. Grab your yarn, pour up an iced coffee, let's sit through the chaos.
Before politics, however, Pugh built an extensive career, one that reads like a checklist for future civic leadership and was as long as a CVS receipt. All right, y'all, welcome back to Black Coffee, Crime, and Crochet, where the stitches are tight, the coffee is cold, and the political scandals, well, let's just say they're never as clean as they sound on the campaign flyers. I am your host, Jasmine Prince, and let's get in today's episode. We are rolling right into week 2 of our Indicted While Elected series. And baby, let me tell you, this one's for the entrepreneurs, the side hustlers, and the ones who thought selling a few books on the side was harmless. Until it wasn't. We're heading right back to Baltimore because apparently that city stays in its scandal era. Like, are y'all okay? For real? Last week, it was gift cards. This week, it's a children's book series, y'all, called Healthy Holly. Yeah, you heard me. A children's book series. Catherine Pugh had the degrees, the connections, the girl boss energy, and still managed to fumble the bag over a book hustle that nobody was reading. Behind the pages of those cute little books was a $500,000 hustle that sent her from City Hall to federal prison. So grab your iced coffee and your favorite crochet project because you already know we're about to stitch this one all the way together, child. So, iced coffee of the week is the Healthy Holly Cold Brew. So this week's sip is a Healthy Holly Cold Brew, which is smooth, nutty, and dressed up like it's ready for a campaign event. But trust me, it's got a little spice behind that healthy name, okay? So, just be prepared. So here's how you make it. 1 cup of cold brew coffee, a 1/2 cup of almond milk or your milk of choice, 2 tablespoons of honey, 1/4 teaspoon cinnamon, that's where the spice comes in. Your ice, of course, and then if you want to be fancy, get some mint for the garnish. So you shake it up, pour it all over ice, put the mint on top of it, and you've got yourself a sip that's way more legit than Mayor Pugh's accounting skills. All right, and then this week's crochet project. Y'all gonna be proud of me. I'm still working on that crochet polo shirt for my husband. I have finally finished the back panel and I'm starting on the sleeves, but this is where I need my crochet community because I bought the pattern, but it's not, I'm not comprehending how to do these sleeves. It's supposed to be like a sleeve decrease and the sequence is 2 double crochet, chain 1, 2 double crochet. That's how I worked up the back panel, but the sleeves is supposed to be 2 double crochet, chain 1, skip 1 stitch, 2 double crochet, chain 1, skip 1 stitch. But I'm not supposed to be doing that in the chain 1 space. I'm supposed to be doing it in the stitches from the previous row. So it's not adding up because I don't know if the chain 1 space is included in that skip 1 or if it's not. And I'm trying to work it up and it's not giving what it's supposed to give. So I'm stuck, but I'm trying not to let my ADHD make me put it down again because my husband has been so patient waiting for me to finish something for him. And I'm like, I was doing so well. I was on a roll with that back panel and these sleeves trying to take me out. So if y'all got any tips, tricks, advice, please let me know because I want to get this polo done. All right. So that's the crochet project of the week. So, let's get into this story, y'all. So, our story begins in the 1950s, far from Baltimore City Hall. Catherine Pugh was born on March 10th, 1950, in Norristown, Pennsylvania, which is a small suburb of Philadelphia. She was the second of 7 children raised by James and Addie Crump. Her father worked long hours in a rubber factory while her mother kept a strict but loving home. Every morning, the Crump family ate breakfast together, and every evening, they dined together, reinforcing discipline and togetherness, which I love. I think more families should eat together. I remember growing up, our family time to eat together was Sundays after church. We sat at the table, we ate dinner together, and I just remember that being if we didn't eat together at any point during the week, we knew on Sundays we were going to eat together, and I feel like that was a bond. I like even all these years later, I remember Sunday dinners with my family. So I love that they reinforce that with their children. So her parents did not play. They made sure she knew, as well as their siblings, that education was everything, okay? Like, they literally weren't playing. Catherine's mother even ran a makeshift preschool at home, complete with little desks for each child, which I love that. Because of this, Sis was reading by age 3, okay? 3. And we have a 2.5-year-old, and we're on phonics and stuff, which is about developmentally appropriate. So she'll be 3 soon. So for Catherine to have been 3 already reading, that says a lot about her mom and the way that she ran that preschool. That's amazing. She spent weekends at the local library and pored over her family's World Book encyclopedias, which Catherine explains, or she later joked, quote, the 1950s version of Google. So for those of y'all who don't know, it literally is a 1950s version of Google, but in book form. So we had a set at our house. We had the full set of encyclopedias, and you can go in and like look up a topic, and it's basically how you did research. You would look for the topic in the encyclopedia, and it would give you all the information, and that's how you did your book reports and all that type of stuff like that. And so I remember we didn't have a computer, but we had encyclopedias. So I would have to get whatever information I could out the encyclopedias until we can get to the library. And which was so crazy because in the summers, our mom would make us walk from our house all the way to the library. And it wasn't like up the street. It was like miles we had to walk. And my mom would make us stay there, and we had to write a book report. And when we came home from the library, we had to show that book report to our mom. And that's just how she kept us sharp in the summers. So when I saw that her mom had them getting stuff out the encyclopedias, and made me think about our set and how we had to use that too, which is so crazy. But this early literacy gave Catherine a hunger for knowledge and a belief that she could be, quote, whatever we wanted to be, end quote, which is what her parents often told their children. Catherine's mom didn't play about presentation either, like at all. She was serious about looks and presentation and all that. Addie Crump, which is her mom, was a fashionable woman who took her kids window shopping at high-end department stores, even when they couldn't afford the pricey clothes inside. But what she would do is if Catherine saw a dress that she loved either at the department store or on TV, her mom would encourage her to sketch it, and then they would take it to a local dressmaker and have them replicate it, which, like, come on, inventive. Who would think? First of all, that says something about Catherine to be able to sketch it enough for the dressmaker to replicate it. But who would have the idea to say, okay, we can't buy it at the store, but we can get close to it? Like, that's very inventive. So the lesson in this was very clear. Look the part and carry yourself with confidence. Quote, I don't care what job you go to, go like you're in charge, end quote, her mother advised. Quote, appearance get you in many doors, brains keep you in, end quote. These words stuck with Catherine, fueling an early ambition to lead and succeed. And that's when fake it till you make it became Catherine's whole entire personality. So, moving forward, Catherine Pugh's drive led her to Charm City. In the 1970s, she moved to Baltimore to attend Morgan State University, which, if you don't know, is an HBCU. She excelled in business studies, earning her bachelor's in business administration in 1973 and an MBA in 1977. We love an educated Black queen, period. Pugh was even a cheerleader during college, a role she later likened to being a, quote, civic cheerleader, end quote, for Baltimore. Armed with education and enthusiasm, Catherine Pugh was ready to make her mark. Before politics, however, Pugh built an extensive career, one that reads like a checklist for future civic leadership and was as long as a CVS receipt. In the late 1970s and 1980s, she worked as a banker and eventually started her own public relations firm. By the late 80s, she had founded Pugh and Company, a consulting and PR firm where she served as president and CEO. She also dabbled in journalism, working for the Baltimore Sun in an editorial role, and served as director at Strayer Business College's Baltimore campus. Her entrepreneurial spirit led her to co-own a TV station in Philadelphia. In 1994, Catherine partnered with media pioneer Dorothy Brunson to run WGTW TV, becoming vice president of Brunson Communications. She even hosted a weekly public affairs program called Another View on that station. Pugh's eclectic resume extended to fashion as well, which obviously makes sense because she was able to sketch dresses that she saw. So, a self-professed lifelong fashionista, in 2013, she co-founded a boutique called Too Chic Boutique in Baltimore's Pigtown neighborhood. This upscale consignment shop opened when Baltimore City's comptroller Joan Pratt combined Pugh's business savvy with her love of style. It was yet another platform for her in the community. By the late 1990s, Catherine Pugh had been a banker, professor, PR consultant, editor, TV host, and boutique owner, experiences that gave her name recognition and connections across Baltimore. The stage was set for her entry into public office. Catherine Pugh's political career began modestly, then quickly gained momentum. In 1999, she won her first election, earning a seat on Baltimore City's council. Pugh proved to be a hardworking, no-nonsense council member with a talent for coalition building. By 2005, her reputation led Maryland's governor to appoint her to fill a vacancy in the House of Delegates, a state legislature's lower chamber. But Pugh had her eyes on a bigger platform. In 2007, she ran for the Maryland State Senate and won, representing a Baltimore district in Annapolis. Senator Pugh, developed a solid reputation as a consensus builder, someone who could reach across party lines to get things done. She also served on key committees, including the Senate Health Committee, foreshadowing her later focus on health-related causes. Yet, City Hall remained Catherine Pugh's ultimate dream. In 2011, she entered the Baltimore mayoral race, challenging incumbent Stephanie Rawlings Blake in the Democratic primary. Pugh lost that race. Her low-key, moderate style was eclipsed by opponents with flashier campaigns. Undeterred, however, she, quote, put her head down and went back to work, end quote, continuing to serve in the state Senate and quietly build goodwill. Her persistence paid off when she ran for mayor again in 2016. In a contentious primary against former Mayor Sheila Dixon, who we discussed last week, Pugh won by just, get this, y'all, 2,400 votes, which is not a lot. Like, that was a very, very tight race. She sailed through the general election, becoming Baltimore's 50th mayor on December 6, 2016. At age 66, Catherine Pugh had achieved her, quote, dream job, which is awesome. Not very many people can say that they got their dream job. So, in an audio clip, Mayor Pugh is saying, quote, we've got, I believe, a great road ahead of us. We have neighborhoods that need to be focused on. We've got to create a more diverse and inclusive government because we recognize that when you lift at the least, you lift all of us, end quote. Pugh's victory speech struck an optimistic tone. Dressed chicly in a blush-colored suit and her signature high heels, she promised to lift up Baltimore's most vulnerable residents. As the third black female mayor in a row for Baltimore, Pugh's win was seen as a continuation of black women's leadership in the city. She took office facing serious challenges: violent crime, poverty, and the lingering unrest from the 2015 Freddie Gray protests. But she vowed to tackle them with commitment and focus. Little did Baltimore know that beneath the polished image of their new mayor, a secret hustle had been brewing for years, one that would soon unravel her whole career, which sounds pretty familiar from last week. So let's get into the Healthy Holly hustle. By day, Catherine Pugh was a mayor and public servant, but by night and behind closed doors, she was running a shadowy side business. Back in 2011, while still a state senator, Pugh had formed a company called Healthy Holly LLC. Through this company, she self-published a series of children's books titled Healthy Holly. The books followed the little girl, Holly, promoting exercise and nutrition for kids. On the surface, it seemed Pugh was contributing to children's health literacy. In reality, however, Healthy Holly became the centerpiece for a years-long scheme of self-dealing and fraud. Pugh enlisted her legislative aide, Gary Brown Jr., as her right-hand man in the book operation. Between 2011 and 2017, she wrote and published 4 Healthy Holly books. Instead of selling them in stores, though, Pugh struck bulk purchase deals directly with nonprofits, companies, and foundations, many of which had business with Maryland or Baltimore City. It was an open secret in political circles that buying a few thousand of Mayor Pugh's books was a good way to gain favor, which is giving scam. The ethical lines were blurry from the start. In one instance, even before she was mayor, Senator Pugh arranged for the University of American Medical Systems, a major hospital network whose board she sat on, to purchase 60,000 copies of her Healthy Holly books for, get this, y'all, $500,000. The books were supposed to be donated to Baltimore public schools children as part of UMMS's community outreach, but Pugh never delivered the books. Like, she delivered some, but she didn't deliver all of them. She didn't deliver $500,000 worth of books. It was 60,000 copies she was supposed to deliver, and she just didn't. Thousands of copies intended for students went missing. Like, how you misplace books, I will never understand, but thousands of them went missing. So what happened to those missing books and all that money? According to federal prosecutors, Pugh and Brown stashed boxes of Healthy Holly books in secret locations: Pugh's house, her legislative office, even a public storage locker rented by her campaign. They then this is crazy. They double sold those books to new buyers, essentially selling the same book twice. Like, it's low-key giving Ponzi scheme. Pugh even used a local charity, Associated Black Charities, as an unwitting middleman to distribute some of these already paid-for books to new organizations. The original purchaser, like UMMS, wouldn't know. The charity didn't know, and the new buyers didn't know, even though they didn't know that they were getting recycled books. It was fraud, pure and simple. Like, you double sell. On one hand, hear me out. On one hand, this is very smart. It's very intelligent. Like, Catherine Pugh was obviously a very intelligent woman, because the organization of this, no one would catch on to it. Like, none of the people buying it, nobody knew. Like, there's no way that they would know. It was very smart, but the feds always catch on. But you gotta give it to her. It was a very intelligent fraud she had going. But Pugh and Brown's playbook for the Healthy Holly hustle had several moves: take payments for books and don't deliver, deliver some but keep the rest to resell, and sometimes take money and deliver nothing at all. They treated Pugh's nonprofit buyers like personal donors. In fact, Pugh used a large chunk of the book profits to fund her 2016 mayoral campaign, which is completely illegal. She wrote Healthy Holly checks to Brown, who would cash them and funnel the money into her campaign under fake donors' names. Over $60,000 of book money was illegally funneled into her election war chest this way. Other illicit proceeds went into renovating a house Pugh was buying in Baltimore. To cover their tracks, which if you got to cover your tracks, you know you're doing wrong, they created phony contracts and invoices to pretend Brown's consulting firm did legitimate, quote, marketing work for Healthy Holly. It was a web of deception woven through children's books, a scheme almost too absurd to believe. Like, it was really smart. For years, this scheme stayed in the shadows. Healthy Holly books did make it to some children. Baltimore school officials recall receiving a portion of the UMMS-sponsored books, though many sat unused, quote, riddled with grammatical errors and practically unreadable. Like, the least you can do if you're going to write a children's book is make, like, you are an intelligent Black woman. You were reading by the time you were 3. There is no reason why these books should be riddled with grammatical errors. You were sloppy. You weren't even paying attention. Like, if you're going to do the crime, be smart about it. Like, make the front look legitimate or be legitimate so that nobody's catching on to it. And this is not an endorsement to commit crimes. I'm just saying, if you're going to do it right. So, okay. Meanwhile, Catherine Pugh was collecting accolades as a health-conscious lawmaker, all while quietly cashing in. Between 2011 and 2016, she reported only a fraction of her book income on taxes. In some years, as little as 10% of what she actually earned. By 2016, for example, Pugh told the IRS she made about $31,000 that year, when in reality, she'd made over $322,000, a tenfold difference. The Healthy Holly hustle was lucrative, but it was only a matter of time before the storybook scheme unraveled. So this is how the scandal was exposed. Baltimore's breaking point came in spring 2019. After Catherine Pugh had been mayor for 2 years, media reports finally brought the Healthy Holly deals to light. Investigative reporters at the Baltimore Sun revealed in March 2019 that Mayor Pugh had been paid hundreds of thousands of dollars by UMMS for her books, all while sitting on UMMS's board approving contracts. The news hit Baltimore like a bombshell. Within days, outraged officials across Maryland began speaking out. The entire Baltimore City Council urged Pugh to resign. Maryland's Governor Larry Hogan, who had once touted Pugh as a partner in crime fighting, angrily called for investigations, calling the situation, quote, a serious breach of trust, end quote. Even Pugh's allies couldn't defend the blatant conflict of interest. Under mounting pressure, Mayor Pugh made a frantic attempt at damage control. On March 28, 2019, she convened a bizarre press conference at City Hall. There, a pale and shaken Pugh apologized for a, quote, mistake, and then astonishingly unveiled a new Healthy Holly line of baby clothes and products she claimed to be working on. With baby onesies and bibs displayed as props, Pugh rambled about Healthy Holly's future. The spectacle left reporters baffled. Was the mayor trying to distract from the scandal with baby outfits? The public wasn't amused. If anything, the stunt became fodder for late-night jokes. This was a city, after all, facing 300-plus murders a year, and its mayor was hawking baby merchandise. 3 days later, Pugh announced she was taking an indefinite leave of absence, citing a bout of pneumonia. Few bought that excuse as anything more than a stalling tactic. So I watched that press conference, and it was wild. Like it really was wild. She's literally up there holding baby clothes. I'm about to try to find it. Like it's okay. Like it was really weird. And she looked really. She did not look well. I mean, she was already older in age, but she did not look well at all. But here is the clip.
City public school children. Let me stress, Healthy Holly Initiative was never about books. It was about a lifestyle. We developed jump ropes, and then my thought process was, what else can we do to send the message that our children need to live healthy, and we need to make sure that we're providing every opportunity for them to be healthy. And so then I thought, why not a baby clothing line? And so we'll share those with you. I began with my own design, one for girls and one for boys. And then I engaged a plant up in York, Pennsylvania, a group of ladies, probably about 20 of them, working in a manufacturing firm, hoping that this line of clothing would become a real reality. Again, the whole concept was to teach our children how to live healthier lifestyles. So these are the bibs, some of them. And every city that I went into, the first thing I would do would be to visit a children's bookstore or clothing store to see if there was anything being produced of this nature. As you can see on our bibs, it was about teaching children to walk, run, crawl, skip, dance, some to eat healthier, play and crawl, walk. We did them in little, these are all the samples, little caps. And my unique design of bottoms. It's a little difficult to get out for the babies, but again, just trying to send the message, jump, walk, crawl, getting our children to exercise early. And then I thought, if I could teach them, it's mostly teaching parents that these are some of the things that their children should be doing. I figured if they would wrap their children in blankets that just weren't frogs crawling or rabbits hopping, but sending the message to walk, run.
Y'all, I'm going to post a link in the show notes so y'all can go see it. That's from WBAL-TV 11 Baltimore. The whole thing is 19 minutes, I think. 19 minutes and 42 seconds. So obviously I'm not going to play the whole thing, but it's very bizarre to watch and listen to. She's basically trying to justify how she got UMMS to buy all these books, like what the purpose of it for, but it wasn't giving what it was supposed to give. So y'all can go watch the full thing at your leisure, but it was crazy. So the dam was breaking. On April 25th, 2019, FBI and IRS agents raided Catherine Pugh's home in Ashburton, her city raided her home in Ashburton, her city hall office, and other locations linked to her, emerging with boxes of documents. The dramatic images of agents carting out evidence definitively marked Pugh's fall from grace. A week later, on May 2nd, 2019, Catherine Pugh resigned as mayor of Baltimore. Her voice trembling in a written statement read by her lawyer, Pugh begged forgiveness. Quote, "I'm sorry for the harm that I have caused to the image of the city of Baltimore. Baltimore deserves a mayor who can move our great city forward," end quote. With that, she became the second Baltimore mayor in a decade to quit in disgrace following Sheila Dixon's 2009 corruption conviction, which we went over last week. The legal reckoning soon followed. In November 2019, a federal grand jury indicted Catherine Pugh on 11 counts, including wire fraud, conspiracy, and tax evasion. Facing overwhelming evidence, including bank records, emails, and even handwritten ledgers of book sales, Pugh struck a plea deal. On November 21st, 2019, she pleaded guilty to 4 counts: conspiracy to commit wire fraud, conspiracy to defraud the United States, tax fraud, and 2 counts of tax evasion. In November 2020, Judge Deborah Krasnow sentenced Catherine Pugh to 3 years in federal prison, followed by 3 years of supervised release. The judge also ordered Pugh to pay $412,000 in restitution and forfeit about $670,000 in illegal profits, including a house she had remodeled with ill-gotten funds. Most of that restitution would go back to the University of Maryland medical system, essentially refunding the hospital for the undelivered books. U.S. Attorney Robert Hur says in this press conference, this is audio of him saying it, quote, "Catherine Pugh betrayed the public trust for her personal gain. Baltimore City needs its leaders to place the citizens' interests above their own. Today's sentence shows that corruption will be met with swift and severe punishment," end quote. At her February 27, 2020 sentencing, a tearful Catherine Pugh stood before the court and the cameras. In a wavering voice, she apologized to Baltimore citizens, saying, quote, "No one loves Baltimore more than I do," end quote. She acknowledged that she, quote, "turned a blind eye," end quote, and let everyone down. Quote, "As one who's gone through this, I don't wish this on anybody. I am apologetic to the citizens of Baltimore," end quote, Pugh said, fighting back tears. Quote, "I don't think this is the last chapter for Catherine Pugh," end quote, she added, and I look forward to regaining my strength, my zeal, my love for the people of the city," end quote. It was a humbling moment, a powerful mayor, now a convicted felon, begging for a second chance. Then we have a quote from an analyst who said, quote, "I think we have, in the case of Catherine Pugh, a completely apologetic individual who deserves a chance. She's very knowledgeable and bright," end quote, observed Richard Vatz, a political analyst, noting Pugh's unusually contrite demeanor. Some observers believe Pugh's public shame was genuine. Others were less forgiving, seeing her fall as a necessary lesson that no one, not even a historic mayor, is above the law. Catherine Pugh's sentencing was not the end of the story. It was the start of Baltimore's reckoning with what had happened. The public response to the Healthy Holly scandal went beyond courtrooms and City Hall. Baltimoreans felt betrayed. Many African-American residents who had seen Pugh as a role model were especially disappointed. How could someone who broke barriers as the third Black woman mayor throw it all away for money? The scandal sparked difficult conversations about race, gender, and corruption. Which I need to insert and say that none of the people on the board were asked to resign. None of them faced any sort of criminal backlash, or none of them got in trouble. It was only her. And I don't understand that, because when I was watching the trap queens, American Hustlers type. I can't think of the show, but it's on BET Plus. Trap Queens. They had an episode on her, which is how I initially found the story. Nobody else got in trouble, and I feel like anybody else on that board. I feel like somebody else should have faced some type of punishment other than her, and that just goes to show you too. Black women get left holding the bag a lot. And it's like in a lot of instances, we saw it last week too, they try to play the same game, not understanding that the fall is a lot harder for Black women than for anybody else. Because they literally left her out there by herself to deal with it, even though she wasn't the only one who was corrupt. So I have an issue with that, but that's a whole tangent that I'm not going to go on. But I found that to be really unfair in this situation. But in one notorious incident, a local TV news anchor, Mary Bubla, I'm pretty sure I'm butchering her name. I knew how to say it and then forgot. My apologies. Asked a question that outraged many. On air, she referenced Baltimore's last 3 mayors, all African-American women, Sheila Dixon, Stephanie Rawlings Blake, and Catherine Pugh, and noted 2 of them had resigned in scandal. She then asked if this was, quote, a signal that a different kind of leadership is needed to move Baltimore forward, end quote. The implication that Black women were somehow inherently ill-suited to lead a city was immediately denounced as racist and sexist. The clip went viral, and she was quickly fired amid the backlash, as she should have. As Dr. Kay Whitehead, a Black woman professor interviewed in that segment, put it, we need to get to a point where race and gender are not determining factors in how we judge our leaders. Pugh's downfall, unfairly or not, had cast a shadow on other Black women in power. Community leaders emphasized that corruption is not about race or gender. It's about personal ethics, which absolutely. After all, Baltimore has had corrupt officials of all backgrounds over the years. Yes. Meanwhile, the media framing of the scandal turned Healthy Holly into a household joke. Late-night comedians lampooned the absurdity of a mayor scheming via kids' books. Some locals lamented that Baltimore, a city already struggling with crime and poverty, was once again in national headlines for something negative. Indeed, critics of the city seized on the scandal. It gave fresh ammo to those like President Donald Trump, who cast Baltimore's leadership as, quote, corrupt and mismanaged, end quote. Maryland's Governor Hogan cited an episode as proof that tougher ethics reforms were needed. In Annapolis, lawmakers quickly passed new ethics rules inspired by Pugh's case, hoping to prevent anything similar from happening again. As for Catherine Pugh herself, following her conviction, Pugh reported to federal prison in June 2020. Owning to COVID-19 precautions, she was assigned to FPC Alderson in West Virginia initially, but ultimately served time at a minimum security women's prison in Alabama. There, she spent her days reflecting and keeping a low profile. In January 2022, after roughly 2 years behind bars, Catherine Pugh was released early from prison and moved to a Baltimore halfway house to serve the remaining of her 3-year term in community confinement. By the spring of 2020, the now 72-year-old ex-mayor quietly re-entered public eye in a small way. She began hosting a daily radio show on WOLB 1010 AM, filling in for a popular talk host recovering from surgery. It was a fitting turn for Pugh, who once co-owned the TV station. Behind the microphone, she could talk about Baltimore's issues again, though this time as a commentator, not a decision maker. Pugh's supervised release was supposed to last until 2025, but she impressed probation officers by complying with every requirement. In late 2023, a federal judge agreed to terminate her probation early, citing her good behavior and full payment of restitution. Pugh had sold off her Ashburton home as ordered, funneling over $400,000 back to the medical system and other victims of the scheme. By all accounts, she was doing everything asked of her. Today, actually, I want to say specifically how she was paying that back, because when I read everything that she was doing, I thought that was amazing. So this source is WMAR2 News. They wrote up an article about it. Let me see. Okay, so since being released from prison, I'm reading this directly from WMAR2news.com. So this is copy paste, like I'm literally looking at it, reading it from there. So it says, quote, since being released from prison, Pugh has worked as a contracted liaison for Morgan State University's Center for Urban Violence Institute. Between that income and her $3,255 monthly Social Security check, Pugh has reportedly been able to pay $1,000 a month in restitution rather than the required $100. Probation officers told the judge Pugh qualifies for early release because she has a, quote, low propensity of reoffending and presents with no identified public safety risks. So she literally was doing everything that they asked her to do, which I think it's amazing that when you, follow the rules, the system actually recognizes that and rewards you for it. So good for her for like going above and beyond to pay back restitution, because in a lot of cases, restitution is never recovered. I kind of hate that it went to a corporation and not to individuals, like in other cases, but I digress. But today, Catherine Pugh is a free woman. She keeps a low profile, focusing on rebuilding her life. In interviews, she has expressed a desire to contribute positively to society again, though what form that will take remains to be seen. Baltimore, for its part, has moved on to new leadership and new challenges. The Healthy Holly books are a bitter punchline, often referenced whenever a local corruption case emerges. It's a cautionary tale that even well-respected public figures can succumb to greed. But it's also a story of redemption and progress. Pugh paid her dues, and at 75 years old, as of 2025, she's working to reshape her legacy. In the end, the rise and fall of Catherine Pugh is a complex chapter in the story of Baltimore. Its tale of ambition and community service tainted by ethical lapses and betrayal. It forces us to ask difficult questions. How do we balance a leader's good works against their misdeeds? Can trust once broken ever be fully repaired? Catherine Pugh's story doesn't offer easy answers, but it certainly makes us think about the price of power and how the price of power and the possibility of redemption. So, to wrap it up, our sip or spill discussion questions. So, this is where we pose a moral dilemma from this case. And here is this week's question. Given Catherine Pugh's contributions to Baltimore as a businesswoman and public official, and the betrayal of the Healthy Holly scandal, do you believe she deserves a second chance in public life? In other words, should society sip quietly and accept her return in some capacity, or spill the tea and hold her past actions against her indefinitely? So think about the ethical tightrope here. Pugh broke the law and public trust, yet she also apologized and served her sentence. Some argue that everyone, even corrupt politicians, can redeem themselves and do good again. Others feel that trust in an elected leader, once shattered, cannot be easily mended, especially when the leader exploited programs for children. So, what do y'all think? Grab your coffee, reflect on that Healthy Holly hustle, and please let me know, will you sip or spill on welcoming Catherine Pugh back to the community leadership circle? All right, y'all. That's it for this week's episode. I have fun. I feel like I'm starting to, get a little bit lighter and finding my rhythm with telling these stories. And I love that it's not all, murder, because that gets really heavy. But this is not heavy at all. So I'm excited. So, another mayor, another mess. So, we're not done yet. Next week, we're wrapping up the Indicted While Elected series with Marilyn Mosby, the former Baltimore state's attorney who found herself in hot water over perjury and mortgage fraud, while the world was still watching her as the face of justice for Freddie Gray. So, yeah, we got more cozy chaos coming your way. So, don't forget, if you love the pod, please drop a 5-star review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Leave a comment on Spotify. I read them. Tell your friends why you're sipping with me every week. It really helps spread the word. It helps people find the show, and it keeps the stitches tight and the coffee flowing. And hey, if you want bonus episodes, early drops, and some exclusive coffee break mini sips, please join me on Patreon at patreon.com/blackcoffeecrimecrochet. There are different levels you can join, and I'm building that out as I get bigger. But yeah, all right, y'all. That is it for this week. You know the vibe. Stay cozy, stay caffeinated, and watch your back when folks start pushing children's books as tax write-offs. See y'all next week. Bye.
Disclaimer. Great effort is made to ensure that all materials used in Black Coffee, Crime, and Crochet adhere to fair use guidelines. No copyright infringement is intended. If you are the copyright owner or represent the owner of any material used in this content and have concerns about its use, please contact me and I will promptly address the issue.